Hey everybody, welcome to the Power Hour of Love. I'm Charboil and this is
El Bandito.
Oh man, El Bandito. We already have a lot of Legion of Love members out there partying with us. Man, we see Party Man Will, Eric G, Chris Hall, man, all of our buddies. How are you doing tonight, man?
Oh, I'm doing great. I hope all you beautiful people are doing great out there as well. Thank you guys so much for joining us. You know, the whole reason we're on here talking heads, blabbing out into the world is just to reach out and touch some of you amazing, beautiful people out there. Your hearts, your minds, man. And tonight we're paying special tribute to someone who kind of inspired us to do just that. You know, so of course tonight we're dedicating our show to the Stan Lee Tribute Hour, man, where we're going to talk about him and everything that he kind of means to us.
Oh,
because, you know, here on the Power Hour, we've done a lot of segments regarding, Marvel superheroes and stuff like that. You know, we did our whole countdown to Infinity War earlier this year. Getting psyched for that movie, talking a lot of history about Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in the early days making comics. And, you know, we figured tonight, rather than delve into a bunch of history and tell you about his life story and everything, you know, there's a lot of that going around. You know, you can check out the History Channel or something awesome for a very in-depth, learn everything you can about Stan Lee's story. But one thing not enough people talk about is the impact that Stan Lee had on their life.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And a lot of people want to talk about that and don't have anyone to talk to it with. So we want to invite all you guys tonight to throw down in the comments how Stan Lee has inspired you, how his work has inspired your life or maybe meant something to you. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about some of our favorite works that he did. We're going to talk about our favorite cameos that he's done in movies. Yeah. We're going to talk about a time we got to see him live and what that felt like and what kind of vibe we got off of him, what kind of person we thought he was. So feel free to share your stories as well. Of course, we've also got the PoDunk news with some awesome, fun, exciting news. We see Mark Darden down there checking in. Sup, buddy? Man, the guano guy. I keep getting the updates, man. I'm so just on the edge of my seat. I can't wait for the book. I know we got the PDF, but I got to have it in my hands.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Big ups to Mark, man. We had an awesome time with him back in August. We definitely got to get Mark back on the show come the new year.
Absolutely, man. So tonight, guys, like I said, you know, Stan Lee has meant a lot of stuff to a lot of people, and his passing last week on Monday, you know, it was like right before we did the show. And
yeah, that was a little tough, right?
Yeah, it really was. But, you know, we wanted to report on it last week, but we definitely wanted to take the time to talk about him. And we kept thinking back and forth of how we kind of wanted to do the show. And, you know, it just kept coming back to that same thing. What does his work mean to us? How did it change or shape our lives, you know? So what do you think, Senor Bull?
Man, you know, like you said, man, Stan Lee, without him, you know, the area of comics would not be the same as it is. I mean, we know there's guys, you know, the DC greats and stuff like that did come before Stan, but man, like just for him to come up and have this rival company that like made so many characters and stories that were very relatable. You know, it wasn't always just the billionaire. I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean, I know we have those too, but it seemed like there was characters there you really could, you know, they weren't princes and all these princesses. They were like, you know, everyday folks, you know, and I just thought that was so cool. And like, really, you know, a lot comes down to the X-Men animated series that came out in the early 90s that actually got me really interested in reading comics. And like, the more, you know, at first I didn't realize that Marvel and DC were different things.
Yeah.
But the more and more, you know, you hung out at comic shops and collected the different cards, you know, you're getting Marvel masterpieces and you're like, hey, man, why ain't Batman in here? And then you learn like, oh, wait, that's completely different company. So, but man, then you learn about Stan Lee and all the guys, you know, that's every card you'd flip over, it said, you know, created by Stan Lee. So you're like, man, this guy has to be big time.
Yeah, definitely. To have his hands on so many characters and stuff, and to be so willing years later to give credit where it was due.
Yes.
You know, a few weeks ago, I know we were talking about the history of some characters, and I was talking about the deposition that he actually gave when Jack Kirby's family was suing Marvel to get rights to certain characters. And Stan Lee was more than forthcoming about saying, yeah, this is what Jack did. This is what this guy did. This is what that guy did. You know, he wanted to give his credit for everyone. Basically, they weren't suing him. They were suing Marvel. So he's like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, they probably should give you guys more money, but they probably should have given Stan Lee more money. But
Stan did the right thing.
Yeah.
Bob Kane.
But in the end, right, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said the difference between your kind of DC superhero and your Marvel superhero, because it's such a very big difference, right? And everyone knows that DC kind of touts their characters as gods among us. I mean, it's the name of the video game that they put out and stuff like that. So their characters originally were so altruistic, so perfect, so infallible, you know, that it was easy to consider them gods. They didn't make mistakes, you know? And as kind of a role model, that's great. That's a great thing to have. But the older you get, the less relatable it gets. Because in real life, it's hard to make the right decision every single time.
Oh, absolutely,
you know?
man.
So when Stan Lee came along and he said, hey, why don't we start doing stories about characters who are not anti-heroes, but almost reluctant heroes, people who just had power thrust upon them and are just trying to do the right thing, but they're not perfect. You know, they're a narcissist or a guy with anger management issues or just some dorky kid. You know, he kind of gave them all these flaws that you could relate to. That I think one of the greatest things he did was create such a gamut of characters that you could relate to someone in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
You know, because there are some people who they can't relate to Wolverine, you know, living on his own and kind of being this badass. Maybe they'll relate more to, you know, Angel, you know, Warren Worthington III, and say that, oh, I was a rich guy growing up my whole life, but I was different because I liked different things, or there was something different about me, and I was treated differently because of that, you know? So there's all these relatable concepts, so...
Oh, totally, man. Like you said, right there, the X-Men. I mean, you got these characters that, I mean, are just, you know, society, like, looks down on them and pretty much, you know, a lot of people want to end them, you know, and it just really kind of reflects a lot of the stuff, especially at the time when they were created, you know, of course, being like, you know, a racial allegory there. So, I mean, just so cool.
Well, because there's a lot of retconned history with the X-Men, it's kind of, you know, I don't want to speak firmly on the subject of this was exactly what was going through Stan Lee's mind when he created them. But I do remember hearing him say in a video that he was like, I came up with the idea of mutants because I was tired of writing backstories for how people got powers. Like, they're just born with it. It's fine. But in that one instance, even that kind of throwaway thought of like, okay, they're just born that way. Like, now, like you said, you've created this whole allegory for real life. Why are we treating people different? Because they're born different. And I think the subsequent writers, your Chris Claremonts and stuff like that, filled in a lot of those stories later on and retconned a lot of that story material, found it so easy to take this great foundation and turn it into something that really meant something to a lot of people and could inspire us. And I think that's one thing about all of Stan Lee's works that we can agree on, is that they all have a sort of impact on you. I mean, if you want to say Professor X is in a wheelchair and you learned that, like, oh, someone in a wheelchair's like a cool person. I don't have to be afraid of them or think that they're different or weird. Same thing, Daredevil's blind.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
maybe if you see blind people in real life, you don't have to be afraid of them or be leery of them or anything.
You took their disadvantages and made it into a advantage of some, in some form,
Yeah,
So,
or just made them normal.
Yeah.
Made them acceptable. Some characters thought they were different and weird and didn't like them because of whatever their disability or mutant ability was, but other people embraced it and liked them more, kind of showcasing just the differences of people. But, during the deposition, one thing Stan Lee said, and he's quoted on this, is that he wanted to take character ideas of people that you wouldn't like and make you like them. Make them a hero and make you see them in a different light. And in a way, that's how real life is all the time. I mean, we meet people that we instantly don't like for whatever reason, but if we got to know them and saw things from their point of view, understood the experiences that led them to make the choices that they make, we're more inclined to just be like, oh, I see this guy's point of view. I get where he's coming from.
Sure.
And find more common ground, So it was a much broader scoping than I think even Stan Lee realized when he was coming up with a lot of these ideas.
Well, man, like all of the Marvel greats, I mean, they've got a tie to Stan Lee, man.
Yeah.
And,
We could take an hour just to read through the list of characters he created.
But I think we're both going to agree that probably our favorite would have to be Spider-Man.
Yeah, no doubt. Like a boss, Spider-Man coming in. Mikey B, we see you down there. What's up, buddy?
And I'm sure everyone's like, man, it's a Stan Lee show. Like, why is Charboil wearing a Beavis and Butthead shirt? Well, man, just so you know, back in the day when Beavis and Butthead came out, Marvel was like, hey, we're going to jump on that train. And they actually put out a Beavis and Butthead comic.
No doubt, man.
All right, man. But yeah, the like you see right here, how did his work affect you, man? And I mean,
yeah, post it in the comments, guys. Let us know.
Absolutely, man. We want to know, man, what is your guys' favorite character? Like you said, how did it affect your life growing up reading these books? Like you said, man, definitely, we grew up in a time where, reading comics was not a cool thing to do. We weren't bringing them to school and stuff, but we love that that's a thing now.
We were, but we were getting the shit kicked out of us for it. Yeah, maybe not you so much because you're like a foot taller than me. But
well, you know what it was? Is like any of those kids that saw, they're like, oh, he's reading a Venom comic. All right, that's okay. Spider-Man, no good ice. No, but no, honestly, Spider-Man was always like the character that I just loved his stories. I loved the situation. By the 90s, he was already kind of like out of college and like living with Mary Jane. So I couldn't say as a kid, like I related to that aspect, but just his innocence and always trying to do the right thing and being faced with real world problems made me think about, like, am I going to have to worry about that when I'm his age, Man, it was very wild, man. And I know,
luckily no one's yet cloned me, even though I'm over 30, so that's super.
That did happen in the 90s too, yeah. So I was like, ugh. But, of course, Maximum Carnage, all those other great stories that came out of the 90s. But, man, are we going to talk about our favorites yet?
Yeah, I think we can do that. You bring up Spider-Man, and I think we both got a lot to say about Spider-Man. It's kind of just a weird coincidence that we both kind of, like, we both feel that that's the most pivotal character that affected us the most. So I hope you guys don't feel like that's a cop-out. If there's a different character you relate to more, I know Frederico's told me several times that the Hulk is really someone who he identifies with. I know Bishop's told me the same thing. I know that my dad used to tell me stories about both Namor and Thor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, saying Thor was one of the only characters who you constantly saw with blonde hair. Like Captain America usually had his cap on.
Sure, yeah, he was covering
cowl,
it up.
And but he was blonde hair, blue eyed when he was a kid growing up and didn't know a lot of other blonde haired kids and stuff. So he really identified with that in the comic, as silly as that may seem. That was something that he latched onto and made him identify with that character, because Thor was sort of an outsider and he felt like an outsider in that respect. But also same thing with Namor. Namor was someone who was never really appreciated on land or at home in Atlantis. So...
You know it, man. Well, like you said, I think we got to get your dad one of those winged hats that, a little crown that Thor wears. I think that'd be awesome. Oh, yeah. Oh, it looks like we got a few folks down in the comments here, man, throwing down, Party Man Will says he identifies with Magneto.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, definitely a Stan Lee creation. He was there all the way back in X-Men number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. He's on the cover. One of the only, like back facing kind of things, you know?
Oh, absolutely, man.
He's kind of like half turned away from.
Oh, you're right.
From
yeah,
the cover because he's like attacking the X-Men.
Yeah, and he's got his force field around him. That was a cool cover though, because you saw all the X-Men on the cover. There was Iceman and Beast, and
that was when Iceman used to look like a snowman.
Yeah,
they just put him together in the snow. That was really cool.
Now they're like, he's an alpha level mutant, like, you know, one of the most powerful because he can cover his whole body to protect himself. Oh man, we got.
Well, he can get shattered into pieces and kind of melt and reform like the T-1000.
Oh,
so that's pretty cool. But we got a lot of shout-outs out here. Just in case, his Wolverine was always his go-to. Katie D says she didn't read comics as a kid, but it serves as an inspiration in her classroom. Apparently, she's a teacher there.
Oh,
and she's saying that, you know, so many kids talk about it in class that it's very inspirational. Plus, if you didn't read these comics as a kid, if you're not a comic person, if you've never read them, maybe you've seen the films. You know, let us know how that translates. I mean, most of the Marvel feature films are pretty spot-on accurate to their original storytellings. So definitely some major comparison there. Von Doom getting called out by Mikey B.
Oh, man, Fantastic Four. I mean, that's definitely, you know.
Yeah.
Whew,
that's the first Stan Lee superhero comic that he did.
Silver Surfer, another creation. You know, him and Galactus were, you know, Stan. I know there was a few other individuals involved, but Stan definitely had his
I think the
hands
Silver Surfer's that debatable one of like he told Jack to do something and Jack came up with the Silver Surfer. You know, so he's like, well, I wrote the story, but I don't know if he really had a hand in that character more than coming back later and being like, dude, that's awesome.
Oh, definitely more Wolverine.
Yeah, we got a couple of Wonder Womans out there. That's nice.
Hey, absolutely, man. Hey, you know,
whatever character inspires you the most. You know, if you're into bondage, she's definitely the way to go.
Now, yeah, that's a very interesting story, but we won't get into that one tonight. Yeah. We'll have to do a whole episode on that.
All right, Eric G says he would say his favorite to this day is Wolverine. Started reading Wolverine comics when he was in middle school. Was going through a tough time and could relate to his injustices and his ability to move beyond it. Exactly, man. That's what we mean. That so many of these characters teach you these life lessons. And why we like, okay, I don't want to speak for you. For me, why I enjoy Spider-Man so much, why he's my go-to most favorite thing that Stan Lee created, is because I feel like I've learned more about life from Spider-Man than basically anything else.
Well, I could definitely agree with that, man. Like somebody said this recently. I can't pinpoint who. It may have been Rob Anderson, but they said Spider-Man is the moral compass of the Marvel universe, and I think that's you know a lot of times he's the guy that's gonna do the right thing no matter what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, he's gonna be pissed about it though because usually he has to do it.
Yeah, but still, just having that piece. He's I don't want to say he's not the golden boy like Superman, like always do the right, but you know ultimately he's gonna figure it out.
You know, the thing with Spider-Man, and I tell a lot of people this, is he's one of, if not the only superhero who is a superhero out of guilt. You know, like Batman is vengeance. You know, Superman is altruism. Captain America is sort of altruism. You know, freedom, justice, that kind of thing. But Spider-Man's a hero because he feels guilty. Because he feels like he has this great power, you know, and it's his responsibility to do something more with it, you know, and that in and of itself, that one line, that one quote is like a mantra for someone's whole life. That could be a religion, you know, but the fact that he does everything based on the fact that if he doesn't act, something bad could happen.
Oh, yeah.
It's like guilt. That's just like you just feel guilty all the time. You know?
No, absolutely.
So it's such a unique concept. You know, for me, when I was reading comics, beyond anything else I had seen, that it really blew my mind. So
totally, man. Oh, I see some calls out for Vision. Oh, that's definitely a wow one. And Mark Darden with Captain America. Oh, yeah, man. Gotta love Cap, man.
Yeah. Now, Stan Lee wrote a story in issue number 3 of Captain America. So, you know, you can check out our Countdown to Infinity War video over on YouTube or here on Facebook and learn some more cool history about Stan Lee actually working on the Captain America books.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, this is great. You guys keep telling us, you know, your favorite characters and storylines and why you love them. But, man, I think we're going to go ahead and show you guys a couple of our favorite comics that Stan was a pivotal part in.
All right, so these are going to be our favorite stories. Feel free to share your favorite stories. If you know an issue, a storyline, throw it down in the comments, guys.
All right, man. I think I'm up first here. And
you got it.
Got to go with this classic cover. If you guys haven't seen this cover, You got to go look this up, man. This is Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man number 50. Came out in 1966. And, man, like, this comic, it had a lot of stuff going on in it, man. For one, it was the first appearance of the Kingpin, which, of course, if you guys have been watching the latest season of Daredevil or just comic book fans, you know who the Kingpin is. So that's pretty badass in its own right. But this is also the first time in comics, which I know he's done this a few times, but Spider-Man gives up being or Peter Parker gives up being Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know, and the whole title of the book is Spider-Man No More. So, I mean, just the whole thing that, you know, he's turning his back on it, that it's too much for him to burden. Now, of course, there's the return story, you know, of him realizing, wait, no, I got to do this. So it's just a great redemption arc, man. I love it. Also, John Romita Sr. worked on this with Stan, but yeah, what a awesome issue. Yeah. And the thing was, is when I was a kid, you know, I had the card with this art on it. I'm like, man, I love this picture. And I was like, one day I will own this book. And, you know, like when eBay first started up, you know, I went on there because people were telling me you can get some old comics, and I got myself a copy, and it's still treasured to this day. One day I'll give it to my kids.
Well, I have to say, I love the fact that this story was kind of mostly retold in Spider-Man 2, the Tobey Maguire one.
Yes.
Just that whole concept, like you said, of saying that I have to sacrifice part of my life to do the right thing and to be there for people, but I'm not getting to do what I want to do. And Spider-Man, Peter Parker saying, well, I'm just going to do what I want to do. I don't need to do this. Nothing's telling me I have to go out there and be Mr. Good Guy and help people every day. You know, so he bails on it. He told he's forget it. I don't need that.
He throws it in the trash can.
Yeah,
the
he
costume
does. Yeah, it's a great homage shot to the art in the film too. You know, the gloves hanging over the trash can kind of thing. But then realizing, you know, it's not about me getting to live my life doing just fun garbage that I want. You're never gonna have that. No one's ever gonna have that. You have to have your responsibilities too.
Oh,
you know, and as a kid, that's such a fundamental learning experience that it's invaluable. So I think that's an excellent choice.
Awesome, man. Well, like I said, it just was one that I remember loving the art, and then when I read what the story was about on the early days of the internet, I was like, it will be mine. Oh, yes. One day it will be mine. So, yeah, definitely just great. And, of course, what better villain to have him come back and say, wait, no, I can't give this up than the Kingpin. You know, he's out there causing some crime. And, you know, it's just, like I said, a great redemption story.
Oh, man, look at that. We've actually got a chime in here from Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, man, I love
hanging out
Conan.
with us over there on YouTube. He says, hi from the East Coast of Canada. It was comics written by Stan Lee that got me interested in reading. My top Stan Lee runs are Spider-Man, Captain America, and the first Family Fantastic Four. All excellent choices.
Oh, absolutely, man. No, that's the great picks right there.
Yeah. So thanks for hanging out with us, Conan.
Oh, yeah.
I bet that's really Conan O'Brien.
Awesome. All right, man. So what's your favorite?
All right. I'm not
comic?
too far off from you. Just a few years later, they came out with Amazing Spider-Man number 96, right?
Okay.
Now, I'm really stoked about this book because, again, it's that learning experience. It's those life moments, those life lessons that you get out of this book. And I never had a copy of the original, but they were reprinting it for a while at a kind of drug awareness center, and if you wrote to them, they'd send you a copy, you know, like a reprint of this comic. So I have this kind of reprint that I got from them. But what's really fascinating about this is that this is, of course, the book that Stan Lee published without the comic code stamp on it.
And back in those times, that was, you know, some comic book stores wouldn't even carry a book that didn't have this logo on it.
Yeah, this was very important. You know, it was something I was supposed to say it was certified to have family-friendly content and stuff like that. And Stan Lee wanted to tell a story about LSD, about drug abuse, about damaging your body, and how you should help your friends if they're going through something like that. And kind of not really concerned with the comics code stamp. He was like, whatever, dude, if they're not going to let me put it on the book, then let's just print it without it. Wow, you know, so in like kind of the ballsiest move ever. I mean, imagine just a movie coming out and being like, we're not going to put a rating on it. Don't care. You know, I mean, everything on TV's got the little rating. Every video game you buy's got the little rating, you know. But he was like, forget it, man. He's like, it's a story that's worth telling. It's something that'll inspire people, help people. In a 1998 interview with comic book artist Stan Lee, he explained his reasoning for bucking the comic code approval, publishing this 3-issue arc without the covered seal, right? Goes like this. He says, I never thought about the code when I was writing a story, because basically I never wanted to do anything that was, to my mind, too violent or too sexy anyways. I was aware that young people were reading these books, and had there not been a code, I don't think that I would have done my stories any differently.
Well, that's just cool, man. And that's, sometimes you have to live outside the box. You know what I mean? Like, that's, I think even nowadays, like, so many people just are kind of afraid to get that, they want to keep their creativity bottled in a certain container because they're like, oh, it might not be accepted, or it might get, it might damage my, reputation. But man, like you said, Stan was like, hey, I think this is a story that has to get told. And yeah, he told it. And like you said, man, for 3 issues, it didn't have that seal of approval, which I know I've even read that there were certain stores that were like, we're not going to carry it.
Yeah.
But I guess a lot of those newsstands were like, we're going to carry it.
Well, I know the Comic Code Authority very quickly changed their rules. I think it was within a year that they turned around and said, okay, well, you can tell drug stories as long as they're like they have a moral kind of foundation or whatever, because they saw what this story could do, like what it could teach people. I see Aurelia, and look at that. Is that Jimmy Z down there coming at us from Twitch out there, man?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So I just want to show you guys a little bit about what this book taught me when I read it, being in like middle school or something. And this was really cool because, again, this deals a lot with drug use. The book opens up, with Spider-Man arriving just in the nick of time as some guy just high out of his mind is like, I'm going to fly, and like jumps off the building. So Spider-Man swoops in and saves him. And you think, okay, that's cool, man. That's a great lesson right there in one page.
Sure.
What was this guy on? He was going to kill himself over it. That's insane. But Spider-Man, jumps down and he's like giving this kid to the cops to be like, hey,
need to help this guy.
Yeah. But if you notice his little thought bubble there in the corner, he says, oh, I'm still wanted by the police. I got to go.
Yeah.
And, as a kid, that makes you think like, okay, so he's wanted by the police and he just jumped into a whole thing of cops to help someone.
Yeah.
He just put himself in super danger to help someone that he doesn't know who did this to themselves. This is a person who used a recreational drug and they lost their marbles, but he's still there to help them.
Oh, yeah.
Like what a good dude, man. So the book goes on from there to show how the cops use CPR to revive the guy after, he kind of ODs there. So again, being that this came out in the late 60s, a lot of people didn't even know what CPR was. So what a cool kind of way to reach the people and especially young people and tell them about CPR and kind of make them aware so that maybe they can ask some more questions about it.
Man, it's like all hidden there in the text, man. There you go. No, but that worked, man. That worked.
Yeah, so of course he comes home a little later and finds that, Harry, his roommate, is abusing like prescription drugs. I mean, how relevant is that nowadays?
Oh, yeah, jeez.
But yeah, he's in there taking sleeping pills and then, uppers to wake back up later, and he's just zonked himself out, and he ends up getting like really hooked on drugs, starts buying like LSD or something from like a dealer, who Spider-Man promptly goes and puts the smack down on, which I have to say, yeah, hell yeah, that's how it's done, Spidey. But look at this. He does it as Peter Parker.
There you go, man. That's right there.
So it's not Spider-Man. To me, this really sent a clear message, not to go beat up guys who have guns, because this guy has a gun in the earlier panel, but that we could stand up to drug dealers. We don't have to have a costume. We don't have to be a superhero, to say no, to walk away, to do the right thing, or tell these people to go pound sand.
Sure.
So really, really great messages all throughout. And, one of the kind of really stirring things about the arc across the 3 books is that at the very end, when the Green Goblin shows up to kind of take on Spider-Man, Spidey has the great idea to kind of put him in this head scissor lock and show him Harry in the hospital possibly dying.
And yeah, I'm sure most of the people know, but the Green Goblin is Harry's father.
Yes.
So, man, talk about those impacts right there.
Yeah. So, here's a panel of, the Green Goblin crying as he reaches Norman Osborn on the inside from the tragedy and weight of what's going on in here. That even a villain, even a psychotic villain who they've well established as bananas, can recognize and realize the dangers of that kind of drug use,
Absolutely.
So, I mean, such a cool book. And it ends with Mary Jane coming back from Europe and smooching Spidey there. And I love the little,
Oh, wait, is that Gwen Stacy?
It is, yeah.
Oh, okay. You said Mary Jane.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, careful.
Yeah.
Very careful.
No.
We're going to get assassinated here.
No, definitely Gwen Stacy, man. Gwen Stacy coming back from Europe when she was over there on her trip from Europe there.
Absolutely.
Where she was having Norman Osborn's kids. Tell that story years later. That's like an Elseworlds story right there.
Oh,
but anyways, now she shows up, and I love the little caption at the end that says, who says we never give Spidey a happy ending?
There you go, man. And like you said, what a we're not just talking about one book there. You're talking about a 3-story or 3-issue arc that, man, just like you said, really kind of, like you said, it was just great that Stan took that initiative and was like, I'm going to tell that story. I thought that was so cool.
No, absolutely, man. So that's kind of my pick of like my favorite Stan Lee story that he told in a comic, because you could learn so much there. That's a comic to this day you could give a kid who's fairly young and teach them a lot about kind of heavy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I do want to go through some of these other comments we got. We're getting a lot of comments tonight, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you. Conan, again, he's checking in, saying that no one really talks about all the great villains that Stan Lee created. Your Dr. Dooms, your Green Goblins, your Dormammus, just to name a few. You're absolutely right. Like we said, Magneto being one that was right there from the forefront, but basically all those early villains, were all coming out of Stan Lee's head.
Yeah. I know earlier Jimmy Z said, the Juggernaut.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we know, like we said, that, there was probably some other contributing creators to some of these, characters.
Yeah,
but man, absolutely. Just so cool that, I mean, like we said, Stan, I don't think there's a list there. I mean, I know there's a lot of conflict with the Jack Kirby stuff, but it always seemed like he was more than happy to share the creative, credit.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it was that sort of thing of like, he worked for a company, he got paid a certain amount, and everyone else was kind of got stiffed on it, And there wasn't really, like, it's, if you're at work, if you're both working at McDonald's and Senior Boyle's getting paid $19 an hour and I'm getting $8 an hour, there's not really much he could do for me if he's not the manager or anything,
Absolutely.
So despite the fact that Stan Lee was the editor for a number of years, he was very young at the time and didn't really have a lot of control over company stuff. So, but there's a lot of stuff, like we said, out there you could read about all that sort of thing. What we really want to talk about is the inspiration that he left behind and all the contributions that he did make to each and every one of our lives. And I think one thing that we can both agree was a very impactful moment in both of our lives was actually getting to see Stan Lee in person at MegaCon a number of years ago, watch a panel with him, and we wanted to share some stories about things he said kind of in that room that you guys may not have ever heard. So,
and yeah, man, like you said, I think this was probably like 6 or 7 years ago, but man, he was, even at the age that he was at that time, and he was like sharp as a tack, man. He was, he was anything, he might have needed some help sometime when people were speaking a little too softly through the microphone or something. But, like he just answered the question so clearly and so great. And one of the questions that he was asked, I thought was so cool. Everyone was like, if there was a character you wanted to see make a movie of, who would it be? And Stan sat there, and he kind of did his, that's so hard. There's so many great ones and stuff. But what he called out is he said, I'd love to see Doctor Strange have his own movie. And I got to say, I'm so happy that he got to see that come to fruition, that before he passed, that, in 2016, we got the awesome Doctor Strange movie. If you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. Even if you're not a big Marvel fan, that movie goes in so many places that it's just like so cool to get that mysticism in the Marvel universe.
No, it's definitely very fun. I dig that one a lot. I see Jason T down here says, have you noticed a lot of Stan Lee's characters are named with the same letter for both their first and last name? Like Silver Surfer or Doug Dugan? Dum Dum.
Dum Dum.
Dum Dum
Yes,
Dugan,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Bruce Banner.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Peter Parker, Reed Richards, Sue Storm. I mean, it's definitely there. You know, Bruce Banner.
Charles Xavier. Nope, sorry, that's not one.
But yeah, then you have your Tony Starks, where you're like,
Yes.
I don't know where I was at on that one.
I think I saw one time he mentioned that he did that as a way to easily remember.
Yes.
Is that what it was?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
what he said?
that he would have a hint to what their last name was if he could remember their first name. But if he could remember their last name, he had a hint of what their first name was. That's why Victor Von Doom was named Von Doom, you know, and things like that.
Oh yeah. No, they just great names too. I mean, just they're classic.
Yeah, look, Aurelia says that she met Stan Lee at a Comic-Con, and he made difficult topics easy to talk about. So yeah, that's definitely, kind of the crux of what we're saying about those inspirational stories. And what I was saying about breaking the comics code is that, yeah, he took this very weighty topic and he condensed it into a story that made sense to a kid, and that we could understand. But even as an adult, going back and reading that comic, in preparation for this show, there's so much depth to it. There's so much story to it. I can really enjoy that as an adult and even see more to it than I caught even the first time reading it through.
Oh,
but
yeah, man.
When we met Stan Lee and we saw him I guess we didn't really meet him. We didn't get to shake his hand or anything, but we got to see him.
That would have been awesome,
I know. It would have been cool. But one of my favorite things was there was a young lady who was dressed like the Phoenix, like great cosplay.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, she was like, hey, she came up to ask her question and she has a microphone. She says, hey, I was just wondering if I could hug Stan Lee. And Stan Lee's kind of laughing. And Jimmy Palmiotti was the kind of,
handler.
Yeah, his handler up there helping him with the questions and stuff. And he says, yeah, come on up here. And this girl comes running up like a firecracker. And Jimmy's like, hey, keep in mind now, you can't go bear hugging him. He's an old man. You don't want to break Stan Lee in front of all these people now. And she's like, oh, okay. And she gives him this nice little gentle hug. And I thought that was so cute, man. But one thing that just kind of speaks to the character of Stan Lee, who he was as a guy, was one of the questions was a young kid walked up and totally decked out head to toe in Deadpool gear, his Deadpool jacket, Deadpool hat. And he walks up and he says, hey, Stan Lee, I love the character of Deadpool so much. I'm just interested in what inspired you to create him. Now, like half the audience immediately groans. They're like, oh, God, yeah. Because Stan Lee didn't create Deadpool. That didn't come out till way years later, So I'm kind of like, oh, wow. Like, how do you answer a question like that? Like, so many actors that we've met at cons and stuff like that would kind of be offended that you didn't know their body of work, or that you're trying to make fun of them or something like that. So to me, I was like, whoa, that's a kind of a wild question to ask. And you feel kind of bad because obviously the audience reaction kind of, signaled to this kid that, oh, snap, was he asking something wrong, but maybe he didn't quite get it yet. And dude, no joke, I don't remember 100,000% exactly every word, but I know he said something to the effect of there are several characters in the Marvel Universe that I wish I had helped create. Deadpool is certainly one of them because he's a fantastic character, but I didn't actually work on him. And I was like, holy cow, what a professional, courteous, encouraging answer that paid compliment to people who came after him and to a character that came after him. I mean, just what a class act,
Absolutely, man. Like you said, I remember hearing that, and I think I was one of those guys. I was like, oh, you just, like you said, you feel bad for him because the kid's obviously a fan.
Yeah.
He's buying the comics and stuff, but it's like, he just had a little bit of facts a little mixed up.
Yeah, it happens. Right?
But man, it was so, like you said, that response was just so cool. And like you said, I think it goes back to what Aurelia was saying about how comfortable he could make you feel.
Yes.
To even ask a question that you might not exactly be correct in even asking him.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, so humble. He was so humble when you saw him in person, and oftentimes you'd hear him speak. Like at the con, people were asking him, did you have any idea that these characters would be as big as they are today? And he would, I've seen him a number of times answer that question along the lines of, no, I was just creating characters that I liked and was having fun. He's like, I can't believe that people enjoy them so much. That literally blows my mind. Like, I can't comprehend that. And he's like, but I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Remember the one guy that walked up there dressed as the Silver Surfer? He was like, "Oh my goodness!" I think that's what some of these people just want Stan to compliment their costume.
Yeah. But I mean,
cool.
that's the compliment to him. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. No, it was so cool. I'm so glad we got to see him. I think 2 times, didn't we? I think we called. Yeah. And he was great both times. Very lively and answered all the questions.
Yeah,
very
fun,
cool.
humble, animated. It just seemed like a super guy. Definitely somebody I would have loved to have had lunch with one time. I'll buy him a taco from Del Taco or something.
Now it looks like Mark Darden down there said that Stan rushed past him at MegaCon and had a "don't get in my way" kind of look on his face. Well, I think I saw like them one time escorting Stan through like the main floor, and they definitely, I mean, you were not going to touch Stan Lee. He was like,
hey, when you gotta go sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't know, but he may have just been put off by like Mark's dashing good looks, and he was like, I can't get too wrapped up in this. I'll just lose myself in his eyes.
I know. He's like, I'm going to go create a character based on that guy. But all right, man. Now, this is really cool, man. Like Al Bandito said earlier, on the other side of PoDunk News, we're going to be talking about all of Stan Lee's great movie cameos. Yes. So we want you guys to stick around for that. But is it about that time, man? We're going to jump into some news real quick.
Yeah, I think we'll head over and do some news. Feel free, guys, to leave some more comments about how Stan Lee has affected your life. If you happen to meet him in person or see him at an event like we did, feel free to leave a comment. Let us know about it, and we'll catch it on the other side of the news. But for right now, we're going to fill you in on some of the latest and greatest stuff happening in this big, beautiful PoDunk world around us.
Oh, yeah.
PoDunk News.
All right, man, we're going to dive right in so we can get back to the Stan. And here we go, man. First story of the night. Oh, man, one of my favorites. Don't miss the return of Joe Bob Briggs as he goes to host his Thanksgiving-themed horror marathon titled Dinners of Death. The show will run from 9 p.m. on Thanksgiving evening till dawn the next morning.
Wow.
The marathon will be hosted exclusively on Shudder, and I don't know yet if it's going to be like a replay like they did for the first marathon. They probably will. They'll probably have it where you can go back and watch the ones that you missed, because after you eat all that turkey, you're going to like want to take a nap. But so glad to see Joe Bob back, and apparently he's going to have a Christmas special as well. So can't wait to see it. Maybe he'll break the internet again.
Well, speaking of breaking the internet, we wanted to let you guys know that Fallout 76 is off to a bit of a bumpy start. Now, I haven't sat down and tried the game yet. I promise when I try it for the first time, I will air it live on a special edition of the Power Hour of Love.
There you
but
go.
Senior Boyle took the opportunity to be like, I'm going to play that shit. Why don't you tell us what's been shaking out? Let us know about the fallout of Fallout 76.
All right, so first and foremost, we got to talk about launch day, or pre-launch day, as you want to say. The game was scheduled to come out November 14th. And actually, on PC, the servers opened up on the 13th, which, of course, all the PC players started storming it and playing, and they threw it up on Reddit. So before long, people knew that these PC players were playing. Well, GameStop made the decision to go ahead and release the game on that day. They were calling people saying, hey, if you had pre-ordered Fallout 76, you could come in and pick it up today. The only problem was, while GameStop did that, other retailers didn't.
Yeah.
So people who had ordered it from, Best Buy or Walmart or something, they weren't giving it up. They said, you got to wait till midnight of the next day. So, of course, that got people all riled up. But it was what it was. And if you digitally download it, you had to wait till midnight. So I was on that crew. But I was okay, because you know what? I was like, I'm going to have plenty of time to play this once it gets out there. Don't worry, I wasn't in any fear of missing out. But once I did, I've been playing it now for about a week, and I have run into a couple of bugs that I just wanted to kind of mention. But
like rad roaches?
Yo, plenty of those. All kinds of different bugs. But man, I do have some bright side on the end of this quick list. All right, the first one that I experienced, server disconnection on launch day. Me and El Bandito predicted it. We knew it was going to happen. It didn't really make me that sad, because I was like, I kind of prepared myself for this. Other people
didn't bother me.
Exactly. I'm sure some other folks were really pissed when they waited till midnight and then they couldn't play right at that minute. But it happens. It's an online game. Okay, now a couple things that I've come across that if you have too many enemies on the screen, I'm also playing on Xbox One, it starts to kind of glitch, like, you know, and the enemies are still attacking you, but you can't see what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, so that kind of freaks you out a little bit. Then my quests started disappearing. Like, I logged off one night and I came back the next day, and one of my main story quests just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, Bethesda, I can excuse glitchy screens with too many enemies. I can excuse the server going down. But come on, you can't take the quest away from me. I was like 75% done. Then my camp disappeared, which then I actually figured out how to get that back. So that wasn't so bad. But here, this is real quick story. In the game, you can claim workshops as like your own, like, mini owned zoned. And you can, like, you know, produce resources and stuff there, which is very helpful in the game.
Okay.
So I got one of these, and I was super excited because I sat on it for about 45 minutes creating pure water and food and and putting up defenses in case anyone came to mess with me, kind of hoping that somebody would.
Yeah, it sounds like you went all Liam Neeson out there.
I did. So I was stoked when I started to see a little blip coming towards me because I'm like, okay, now we can PvP because, you know, I own something here.
Yeah.
But as soon as they got in with range, I took a shot at me. The server dropped me. I was out. And by the time I got back in there, the guy had taken over the place. But I knew the secret doors in there, so I went in there and I stole some of his water. But either way, I was like, damn. And I kept trying it over the next few days to try to claim these places. And every time I would claim it and someone would attack me, it would drop me from the server. So I looked it up, and it turned out it was a bug. And that's why a lot of people haven't even been claiming them because they're like, don't work. But don't worry, guys. I know it sounds like we're thrashing after we had this whole big show last week talking about it. Bethesda today released a patch. It was huge, so it took a while.
Yeah.
But in the patch, I loaded up the game right before Power Hour just to check, and my missions are back. My camp is back where it should be. So they promised they were going to fix it. So, you know, it's kind of like that end scene of Wayne's World where, like, don't worry. We're going to clean it up.
Yeah.
I'm that Indian crying, but I start smiling at the end.
You know, if they make it right, that's the thing. But like we talked about last week, so many games like this come out, you know, even AAA titles, it's just, they're not quite finished yet. It's why I never rush out to play a game, really. You know, I feel bad because I know that leaves a lot of the Power Hour, like, fans hanging. They never get to see us kind of launch day any games or anything. But this patch that they put out today, 47 gigabytes on consoles. I mean, yeah, like there are some Xbox One games that aren't even that big, you know?
It was pretty. It took a while. It took about 2 hours for it to download.
But it sounds like it's great that they're fixing up a lot of stuff. It sounds like in a few weeks when I actually do get to sit down and jump on this thing, it's going to run pretty smooth. I'm sure I'll hit up Aurelia out there. We'll get together. And she says that she started playing 76. She thinks it'll get better as the community grows or if you have a big group to play with. It's hard having absolutely no NPCs, even if there are holotapes and such. I think that it's just a new MMO dynamic that we need to adjust to as a community. Other than that, it's a great game so far. So that's awesome. That's awesome to hear, and we'll be part of your big group. So there you go.
Absolutely, Aurelia. Those are very good points, and I absolutely agree that I think in time this will be an awesome experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just the thing of having them fix up the pieces that are kind of a little wonky right now.
Yeah.
And eventually we could all have fun.
Yeah, because, I mean, honestly, this is like a PvP game. And if the first time you engage someone, you just get dumped off the server. If every time you do it, you just get dumped off the server and people take your stuff, you're like, okay, dude, well then, like, I'm not actually PvPing anything.
Well, yeah, it's like almost like you put it. I know I was talking to Party Man Will, and he said, man, if I put in all the work of building up like reinforcements and I lost it because of a server drop, he's like, that would piss me off. And I'm like, trust me, man, I was a little like, oh, man. But at the same time, the world is so massive that you're kind of like, you know what, forget that junkyard. I'm going to go elsewhere and find some other thing to attack. Like you said, yeah, the dynamics, of course, of the non-NPCs. But who knows, maybe as time goes on, maybe the players will take on the role that those NPCs once had. Like when more and more people get a feeling for the role, they'll jump in and actually play a vendor or play just some crazy guy you meet on the side of the road.
Yeah, because I loved that concept that you told me earlier, that in your head you were like, this may evolve into an online like D&D game where we all have a character and a part of this world that we want to play. And it sounds very reminiscent to a lot of what Todd Howard said originally, that he's like, we want to see what people will do in this game.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like, yeah,
it's like a massive social experiment.
Yeah, we get to carve out how we live in the wasteland, and that's a compelling thought to me, because you kind of try to do that in all these other games anyways, in Skyrim and in Fallout 4. So it'd be interesting to see what you can do to thrive and survive in a world that doesn't function with the same rules as real life. So I'm excited. I'm excited to check it out, man.
Well, definitely, man. Like I said, if you wait a few weeks, you're probably on the better half of it. But it's all good. If you guys jump on Fallout 76, definitely look us up. I'm Charboil on Xbox One.
Yes,
and,
I'm D3 Chavez.
So definitely, hit us up if you're out there.
I got tired of like the racist stuff. No El Bandito for me. I need everybody calling me a Mexican every 2 seconds.
We're not going to get into any of the reviews tonight because I think it's still too early to give this game an honest review.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt, man. Because, dude, what on earth is wrong with people on Twitter? Like, I follow Bethesda, and every time they're like, hey, it's been 48 hours since the launch of Fallout 76. What do you guys think? Stream of hate. I'm like, what? Dude, Twitter people must be like the worst people. I have no idea what's going on out there.
It does need some work, but I think it's all about expectation.
But people posting like, I was excited to return my copy and get Battlefield. You're like, that's just shitty. Like, you're just being shitty. Like, how'd you play a game in one day and realize I hate this much? I go and return it.
I know somebody said Todd Howard should be fired for this game, and it's like, you do realize he made 3 and 4 and all those other ones.
Todd is God.
Well, we've definitely we don't want to turn this into another Fallout episode. We got some other great stories, but like we said, if you guys jump on Fallout 76, let us know. We'd love to play with you.
Absolutely, guys. But books, man, we're going to talk about a little bit of otherworldly, outside the Marvel Universe comic news, as the DC Universe recently took a page out of its own comic book history by recreating the phone-in campaign it used 30 years ago to decide if Jason Todd's Robin in the new Titans show will live or die.
I think this is pretty cool, man. I
think
like
it's
this concept.
Awesome. Yeah, considering the original Death in the Family book came out in 1988, so it is like the 30-year anniversary. So this is a reference, of course, to that original book and Jason Todd's death at the hands of the Joker, right? So in Titans, they have now shown that Jason is like the new Robin, and he's going to be kind of replacing the actor that we've seen in the trailers. The fuck Batman.